where it continues to operate today. Some people put a picture of the church parsonage on their website and said, this is where Hovind got his PhD. Well, the church parsonage has the same address as the church. And how that applies to me, I don't know. I mean, it was a Hilltop Baptist when I got mine, and now it's in Alamosa. This really shows they're desperate and dumb, in my opinion. Some people have ridiculed the size of the school. Well, there's about 3 PhDs per year and about 25 graduates a year out of Patriot University. It's a small Christian college, no question. It'd be interesting if you could see the look on these guys' faces if they knew the size of the school that many of our early presidents or congressmen or military leaders graduated from. If Harvard offers a PhD degree program, it only has 3 students in it, which is often the case, by the way, in many schools, 1 or 2 students many times in a PhD program. What does that mean? I mean they're not accredited? Does it mean they're no good because they've only got 1 student or 2 students? I mean, come on. Use your head. Doesn't mean a thing. They say, is it a diploma mill? You know, they're just cranking out these diplomas and selling them. You can buy it for $100. Well, that's not the case at all, okay? I worked hard for mine. If you don't like it, don't call me that. Don't do whatever you want. Patriot has 25 graduates each year. 3 to 5 are getting doctorate degrees. My 30-year study on creation led me to start this ministry. Full-time 1981, started in 1989, but full-time 91. I speak a little over 800 times a year now on this subject. I've had over 80 debates. I've been a guest on 5,000 radio, TV, call-in talk shows. My itinerary is available on my website. If any evolutionist is interested in a public debate, they're welcome to contact me to arrange a time when I'm in their area and I'll have a debate in a public place like a university. If they don't think I have a doctor's degree, then call me Bubba and let's just discuss the topic of creation. So, we've been offering $250,000 for those that have real evidence for evolution, and I think it's one of the dumbest theories in the history of the world. Darwin's only degree was in theology, but he's called a scientist in the textbooks. That's interesting. Who determines who a scientist is anyway? Who's making this call? You know, a person who studies science is a scientist. Why don't they call him Reverend Darwin? That was his degree. Dr. Morris pointed out, it's worth noting that almost none of the leaders of this evolutionary revival have been trained as scientists in the modern sense. None were educated as physicians, as physicists or chemists or biologists or geologists or astronomers or other natural scientists. Charles Darwin was an apostate divinity student whose only degree was in theology. Charles Lyell was a lawyer. William Smith was a surveyor. James Hutton was an agriculturist. John Playfair, a mathematician. Robert Chambers, a journalist. Alfred Wallace had little education at all and a brief apprenticeship in surveying. Thomas Huxley had a very indifferent education in medicine. Spencer received practically no formal education except in railroad engineering. Thomas Malthus was a theologian and economist. Erasmus Darwin was a medical doctor and a poet. Yet all of these guys are the founders of the evolution theory. Only Jean-Baptiste Lamarck in France and Ernst Haeckel in Germany seem to have a bona fide education in a branch of science, and they all had their particular anti-Christian agenda. Haeckel and Lamarck were wildly wrong, and they used simple lies to promote the evolution theory. So, summary. I earned a PhD from a non-accredited Christian university. Thousands of major world leaders throughout history had no degrees of any kind. Thousands of major universities today offer distance learning, website learning, internet site. You don't have to go to the school to get your degree. In many cases, there's nothing wrong with that. Thousands of people who attend classes in universities cheat, lie, or bribe their way to get a degree. Getting a degree from an accredited university does not guarantee any level of intelligence or accuracy of beliefs. Science has a long history of teaching things that are wrong. If you don't like my degree, call me Kent and let's get back to the topic. So if I was dumb and desperate, I would start attacking the person's degree instead of attacking the subject, which is exactly what's going on. Tell them to grow up, get a life, and let's get back to the topic. Next question. People ask me, what about the Red Sea crossing? I mean, if a whole army crossed the Red Sea, there ought to be some evidence of this. Wouldn't you find evidence for the Bible being true? Well, in Exodus 14, it says they're going to encamp by the sea where God commanded them to. Exodus 14 tells us that when they went across, the waters, they went on dry ground, and the water was a wall on the right hand and on the left hand. So they're not wading across shallow water. There is actually a miracle. They're down in the sea with the water as a wall on both sides. Interesting. It says God took off the chariot wheels of the Egyptians. That's what the Bible says in Exodus 14. And the waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen. All right. Well, if you look at the country of Egypt, to the right side is the Red Sea. It has 2 branches to it. The left branch is the Gulf of Suez. The right branch is the Gulf of Aqaba. In between is what is often called the Sinai Peninsula. Phoenician pharaoh, Phoenician princess pointed at a mountain one day and said, I think that's Mount Sinai. She had no clue where Mount Sinai was, but she said that's Mount Sinai. Everybody calls it Mount Sinai even today, but it's not Mount Sinai. It can't be, as we'll see in a minute. Apparently the children of Israel followed this red line out of Egypt all the way across what is now called the Sinai Peninsula and crossed over at the Gulf of Aqaba. I got this information from Ron Wyatt and Richard Reeves, who spent years over there researching this. There's a dry riverbed where that red line is that flows right up and ends up at the Gulf of Aqaba. Here you see it, the Gulf of Aqaba in the distance there, and there's actually a pathway between the mountains, very rugged terrain. It ends up on this beach right there where the arrow's pointing. This is a satellite view kind of from the north, and that is actually a giant beach, able to hold several million people. No way to flee north or south, because once you get out there, you are flat stuck. Okay, there's mountains all around, a little valley that you just came through, and no place to get out. Apparently the children of Israel got trapped there with Pharaoh's army closing in the gap behind them. At the south end of this beach, many years ago, Ron and his sons found a pillar, and they dragged it out and scrubbed it off, and they could only read a few words on it, mostly pretty eroded, but they found another pillar just like it on the other side in Saudi Arabia. And the pillar said this was erected by King Solomon to commemorate the crossing of the Red Sea. The maps of the depth of the water there are interesting. There's called the Eilat Deep. I went swimming in and went down to visit Eilat, Israel, where it comes down and touches the Red Sea here. It's about 5,000 feet deep in here in the Gulf of Aqaba, except for this one spot where it's only 900 feet deep. There's a natural underwater land bridge. It's about 8 miles wide and only 900 feet deep. A friend of mine, Aaron, went over there and said, look, folks, this is absolutely correct. The Israeli bathymetric chart says this is only 900 feet deep here. And some people are criticizing Ron Wyatt, saying it's not true. There's not a bridge there. Yes, there is an underwater land bridge. So Ron and his sons went out there scuba diving out as deep as they could go, 150 feet or so, and found chariot wheels with no chariots attached and chariots with no wheels attached. They found rib cages of humans, rib cages and hooves of animals that are fossilized, not fossilized, but covered with coral. You can go to the museum in Cornersville, Tennessee, south of Nashville, about 50 miles, and I think it's exit 27, and there's a converted gas station right there, which is the Wyatt Museum, and see these things for yourself. See the horse hoof all dried up and dehydrated. The 18th dynasty in Egypt is the only one to use the 8-spoke, 6-spoke, and 4-spoke chariot wheels, and all of those are found at the bottom. On the right side over here, you'll see a mountain called Jabal al-Laws, which means mountain of laws, and that is Mount Sinai. The Bible says in Galatians 4, Sinai is in Arabia. Why are they looking for it in the Sinai Peninsula? It's not even there. It can't be. Apparently this is Mount Sinai, black on top. Whether that's from the burning or not, I don't know, but it could be that it actually burned and melted the rocks on top. At the bottom of this mountain, there's a bunch of rocks with, this one has a calf drawn on it. They think probably this is the altar they built with the calf. Exodus 20, God told them to smite the rock and water would come out for the people to drink. Most Bible pictures show a little stream of water coming out. They had several million people plus their animals. They're not going to feed them with a stream of water like that. It's not going to work. It had to be water gushing out of there. Actually, it had to be a river. There's this big boulder you can see here in the background. This is as big as a 5-story building. It is split right in half, completely in half, and on both sides there are erosion marks. This may be the rock that Moses smote and the water